See, y'all thought I was joking about my absence off the internet being strategically planned out, but here it is. The Grammys got postponed to April 3rd, and while everyone else was dropping their predictions back in January, I was out here waiting until the show was actually around the corner to give mine. I know, sometimes my genius is almost frightening, even for me, but here we are, another year, another Grammy Awards ceremony, and as I mentioned in my recap of last year's award show, I'm generally somewhat of a fan of these kinds of shows, especially the Grammys since I've been tuning into them for a while now. Now, over the past few years, they have been more on the controversial side, and rightfully so in my opinion. I'll probably do a separate video at some point on some of their weirdest award choices from over the past few years, but despite all of that, I think they've made enough decent picks to keep me coming back every year. Now, last year's main pre-show headline was The Weeknd being left out of the nominations due to his commitment to the Super Bowl, and for this year, thankfully there was nothing to that degree. Like, yeah, there were some disappointing exclusions, like Tyler the Creator's Call Me If You Get Lost missing out on an Album of the Year nomination, but I feel like stuff like that comes every year, so I'm just kinda used to it now. Thankfully, nothing Weeknd level though. But enough talking about everything surrounding the nominations, and let's get into the nominations themselves. Now, I'm only going to be doing predictions for the general categories in this video, so don't stick around expecting my predictions for Best Contemporary Instrumental Album, cause we ain't got time for all those. But for categories like Album of the Year, Best New Artist, and so on, I'll give my predictions for who I think will win on the night and who I personally would give the award to out of the nominees. Now, if you guys want to check out my predictions for a few of the genre-specific categories like the Best R&B Album, Best Rap Album, Best Pop, this and that, I'll probably be posting all those on my socials over the weekend. But with that being said, we've got a ton of categories to cover, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start off with Record of the Year. Alright, now real quick before I go any further, for anyone who's still confused about the difference between Song of the Year versus Record of the Year, like I was a few years back, the Song of the Year category is more focused on the songwriting and compositional aspects of the song, and this award goes to the writers who worked on the track. On the other hand, Record of the Year is a shout out to the artists, producers, and engineers that worked on a song. Got it? Cool. Now, the nominations for this year's Record of the Year were kind of a mixed bag for me, but definitely packed with a lot of big names: Billie Eilish, Lil Nas X, Lady Gaga, and so on. Out of the options here, I'd easily give it to Silk Sonic's Leave the Door Open. I think Silk Sonic was one of the best things to come out of the industry last year, and Leave the Door Open was the kickstart to an incredible 2021 for Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars. For me, this song is already a classic, but I also wouldn't mind if it went to Doja Cat with Kiss Me More as well. It's another song I really enjoyed from last year. I thought the production was great, and Doja Cat and SZA had some really good chemistry on this one. However, my prediction for who I think the Grammys will give this one to would be either Billie or Olivia Rodrigo for Record of the Year. For Song of the Year, it was kind of the same story as the last category. A star-packed list, but not too many picks that yell Song of the Year for me. So I'd probably go with Leave the Door Open once again as my personal pick. But from a songwriting perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if Olivia Rodrigo took it home either. Driver's License was the song that put Olivia Rodrigo in the spotlight, and her dominance in 2021 was a big highlight as well. And honestly, I do think it's a pretty well-written track. It's catchy, but not in your average hit song kind of way, and I do respect that about Olivia and the record in general. So with that in mind, my personal pick goes to either Leave the Door Open and Driver's License, and I also think the Grammys will give this one to Olivia on Sunday. Now, I'll be honest here and say that out of all the nominations for Album of the Year, I've only listened to 5 of them, and my top pick out of those 5 is Donda by Kanye West. I think Kanye taking home Album of the Year would be very well deserved. Not only was it one of the biggest albums of last year commercially, but it also got some pretty positive reception as well. The only thing I see getting in the way of that though are 3 things: Evermore by Taylor Swift, Back of My Mind by her, and Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish. Yeah, there's a a ton of Grammys alumni in this category, so it's gonna be a really hard one to predict in my opinion. I also wouldn't rule out Sour taking the win either, honestly, given how well the record did commercially and reception wise. So my personal pick would go to Donda, but I could definitely see it going to Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, or Olivia Rodrigo. But just as a side note, how Justin Bieber managed to get an Album of the Year nomination for Justice is genuinely fascinating to me, and if by some slim chance he actually manages to win, I honestly don't know what I do. The fact that this is even a possibility, I'm still working on processing that myself. Now, Best New Artist is one of the only categories that I think the Grammys got pretty solid this year. There's a lot of deserved names on this lineup. Arlo Parks, The Kid Laroi, Japanese Breakfast, Baby Keem, Phineas, who isn't really that new of an artist to be honest, but if it were up to me, I won't lie, I definitely have a hard time picking a winner because I'm a big fan of a lot of the artists on this list. I thought Arlo Parks' debut album, Collapsed in Sunbeams, was pretty solid. The Kid Laroi is definitely up there as one of the best young rappers in the game in my opinion, and it was great to see him really tapping into his versatility on his last record and on tracks like Stay. Baby Keem, in my opinion, was robbed of a Best Rap Album nomination after dropping one of my favorite albums of last year with The Melodic Blue, and Japanese Breakfast also dropped one of my favorite records of 2021 with Jubilee as well. Thankfully, I'm not on the committee, so I think Olivia Rodrigo will hands down win this category, and honestly, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the predicament with the Best New Artist category is kind of the same as last year in the sense that there's a ton of deserved names, but you kind of already know who's gonna win. Last year, it was Megan Thee Stallion who came out on top of a stacked Best New Artist category, and I think that after the insane year she had, it was totally deserved. And I think with Olivia Rodrigo, given the incredible 2021 she's had as well, it's gonna be extremely hard for her not to win this category. So my personal pick for Best New Artist would go to Baby Keem, but I think Olivia Rodrigo will come out on top here. So there you have it, my picks for the big four categories at the Grammys this year. Out of all my predictions, my money's on Kanye winning Album of the Year, because hear me out. In case you didn't know already, award shows aren't as popular as they once were. In fact, I think award shows these days are more remembered for things that happen at the show and rarely the awards themselves. Case in point, the Oscars a few days ago. So what's the closest the Grammys can get to a 2022 Oscar-esque moment this year? Let the guy who's been beefing with Pete Davidson and going on Instagram rants for the past few months the chance for an acceptance speech and watch the world lose its mind. But hey, maybe that's a bit of a stretch. But what are you guys' predictions for this year's Grammy Awards? Who are your favorites for the night? Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, I'll have my recap of this year's Grammys up as soon as my schedule allows it. I'll have my thoughts on the winners, performances, and all that from the night. As always, you can check us out on Instagram and Twitter at the Jukebox Official for some more content over there. And that's about it from me. Is anybody that I want to win a Grammy going to win a Grammy? Probably not, but we'll find out on Sunday. I'll catch y'all next week though.